The Persian Empire is back at it again. 480 BC, they are bigger and stronger than ever before. It's an army so huge, it drinks rivers dry. King Xerxes is the leader. He is so arrogant, he demands that the Greeks lay down their weapons and surrender. Response? Come and get them. It's only 10 years after Athens stopped the Persians at Marathon, but now it's way worse for the Greeks. We go to Thermopylae in 480 BC, then to Athens, Salamis, and Plataea. It's the Persian Wars. This lesson is a turning point in Western civilization. So we study these big questions. First, how badly do the Persians want to conquer Greece? Second, what do the outnumbered Greeks respond with? How do they fight this giant? Third, can you lose a battle but win the war? And then, what is the trophy? What trophy do you win? What does this all mean? I want to show you events and evidence that answer all these questions, because this lesson is where freedom is on the line. I'm Mr. Hall. This is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. This is lesson number 33 in your Ancient History course. It's the Persian Wars, from Thermopylae to Plataea. The first big question is about King Xerxes and the Persians. How badly do they want these Greek city-states? If you're coming here from lesson number 32, you saw that Athens defeated the Persians. At the Battle of Marathon, Athens did this almost by themselves. They stopped the Persians. They fought hard. And you may already know that Greek city-states are not one big unified country. They are refusing to bow down to the King of Kings, Persia, but they're individual city-states, somewhat allied, somewhat united, but these independent city-states don't have a king. They don't have a government that's uniting them. So facing a giant like Persia, it's a big problem. Greek language, Greek culture, the religion, it does unite them. And in this situation, the Greeks will come together. They will be united from this common threat, the Persians, because we think the Persians really want to take over the Greeks. Look at the map of the Persian Empire, all these satrapies. Persia does not understand why you would resist joining this map. You may wonder if Persia wants to conquer Greece for revenge from 10 years ago, for just making this map more complete, because if you're part of this map, this empire, you get all the benefits. You get the royal road, you have a strong leader, but you have to be loyal to Xerxes. Xerxes is now the guy in charge. Back at the Battle of Marathon, King Darius the Great was the leader. He led this invasion at 490 BC, but he died in 486 BC, too early for him to be able to come and see what Athens built to commemorate their victory. You go to Delphi to understand, that Athens won. By 483 BC, Athens had this treasury. Visitors would come to Delphi. They would learn about what Athens did, and Delphi helps understand. Greeks would come and help understand about their people, about Athens, and what's at stake here. By 483 BC, this treasury is giving the message and giving some hope to Greeks to unite against the Persians, who really want to take over the Greeks. Persia will subjugate the Greeks and color in this next square on the map, the Persian Empire, because that's what they wanted to do in 490 BC. So they're going to try again in 480. Their first obstacle is water, the Hellespont. If you're going to come from Asia, go to Europe, you've got this narrow waterway, the Hellespont. Here is the Hellespont. There is no land connection between Asia to Europe, unless you want to go all the way around the Black Sea. This old map is a nice visual of that. It's so close. It's just a short leap across, a little over a mile of just exactly the water. And imagine that you are standing on the shore with Xerxes and let's just say 1 million people. 1 million people, including troops and support, slaves, and everyone to help this invading force. How are you going to get 1 million people across the Hellespont? And you say, how about a suspension bridge? Check this out. In 2022, the Turks finally finished this one. It took about 5 years. It's a total span of like 3 miles from point to point. It's not 3 miles of water, but the Plataea Bridge connects Europe with Asia at a point at which, when I first went in 2015, we had to take a ferry boat. The ferry boat took our tour bus across, and I didn't even imagine that a bridge could be possible here. Xerxes didn't either. And if you were the engineer, maybe you would say, oh, wait, we haven't invented suspension bridges yet, but how about a pontoon bridge? Did you think that? Did you think about tying a bunch of boats together? Because Xerxes wants everyone to see this unbelievable engineering feat where his entire troops and all the support will walk like a river of soldiers and animals and horses going across into Greece. That's what he wants. How godlike would Xerxes be if he could pull this off? With your help, if you were the engineer. So the first set of bridges that the Persians built across the Hellespont got smashed by a storm. Not good. Xerxes exploded in anger, not just at his engineers, but at the water itself for splashing around. You know, they kind of worship the water. He ordered that the sea be whipped 300 lashes. Then he dropped chains into it to signify that Xerxes, the god, would chain and enslave the sea. And he cursed the sea as if nature had personally insulted him. And the engineers were all executed. So I hope that wasn't you that said, how about a pontoon bridge? So in Xerxes' mind, even the sea was supposed to obey his commands, and his engineers were not supposed to be bad at engineering. The Persians built new bridges, this time using hundreds of ships anchored side by side, now with heavy cables of flax and papyrus stretching across these covered ships, like with planks and brushwood. It kind of made a solid roadway. Persia really wants this. They want it badly. They even had to put up screens along the side so that the horses wouldn't be scared by the water, that they wouldn't panic. Panic, that's a problem. And it was 7 days and 7 nights for the army and all the support to cross over, maybe 1 million people. It's so many that ancient writers said that this drank the rivers dry as they marched through Thrace, and they head south towards the heart of Greece. Now, Xerxes liked to sit high up on a throne and watch the spectacle of these amazing events. He has a legend about, as this procession, these 7 days was ending and they've crossed over into Thrace, that he broke into tears. He cried. And his uncle said, "Why are you crying?" And at that moment, the king had whipped the sea into submission, but he admitted that 100 years from now, no one would still be alive to tell the story. That his human life was going to be short and fragile. He wouldn't really be a god, kind of admitting. But he heads on. His army is huge. He wants this badly. Xerxes wants the power that's going to control everything as he's moving into Thrace. He heads south. He has lashed the waters. He's whipped everyone into submission in this moment of glory. This is the greatest invasion, the largest, I mean, the biggest event, the invasion of Europe, that we've ever seen. It's way bigger than Marathon. And with this, you can become a Persian war expert and jot these notes in the notebook, maybe a prediction for how Xerxes will continue. He is leaving his mark quite literally as he's coming down Thrace. He actually scars the earth. He builds this canal at Athos in the peninsula, and he wanted the scar there. He wanted people to see and look at it, and we can see that canal helped him move everything across, but it's also a permanent mark for Xerxes. And crossing the Hellespont was no small feat. He is showing a master level of control and power as he moves closer to attack the Greeks. These projects are huge engineering accomplishments, but Xerxes has no idea what he's up against. The Greek response is coming. So look out, Xerxes. The hot gates are waiting for you. Thermopylae is not far away, but it's going to be a new engineering problem for Xerxes. What is the Greek response to this huge invading force? Well, first of all, they can just let their geography do the talking. I like this old map. Check out this old map because it's in Latin. You're a classical scholar. We can get the Latin, but the topography. It's a nice illustration that Xerxes now has to deal with topography. He can't just come cutting across the shortest distance and attack Athens. It's not even remotely that simple. He has to follow the topography. And there is a narrow choke point that maybe you've already heard this story as we get close to Thermopylae. But before we go there, Athens and Sparta and Thebes and Corinth are preparing their response, and they need to understand what would be wise and what's the center of understanding we should all visit to ensure we're doing it the right way. Delphi. Let's go to Delphi. Let's find out from the ambassadors, the high priest, the Pythia, the priestesses. Do they have help, wisdom, a plan for us? Because it's a little scary what Persia is bearing down on. Delphi is an oracle. That's a place to consult with the gods, the higher powers of understanding. It's a place to understand. So Delphi will come up a lot as the center of understanding. And this is Apollo's temple, Apollo's oracle. And you already saw Athens' treasury. Now, written on the side of the treasury are the words describing the marathon. You can even see the word marathon. And the word is like nemeo, the memory, the memorial of this victory. So already the Greek response is inspired and encouraged by what Athens was already able to do. So there's no magic here. We don't need Apollo. You can just see it and read it and know that it's worth fighting for. And it's something Athens was able to do pretty much on their own. But now we're hearing bad news. Delphi, the oracle, the messages, the actual priestesses said that Athens is in trouble. Everything would be destroyed, temples and towers alike. And with that message, some Athenians were ready to give up. They thought it would be an unstoppable judgment against Athens. But instead of surrendering, the envoys went back in and asking for a gentler word. And they were given the message about a wooden wall that would not fall. The wooden wall will not fall. And that Salamis was holy. So in a minute, we'll look on a map and see where Salamis is. What is the wooden wall? This prophecy is mysterious, but it's going to make sense very soon. Now, the older citizens thought that the wooden wall meant the actual palisade wall. What's a palisade? You know, you've seen like the pokey, sharp tips on a wooden wall or a hedge. And they had one of those at the Acropolis, so maybe it meant that. They liked the idea of defending the high rock, the Acropolis. You can see how strategic it is. This is a view from the Agora, and those buildings are from a later time, but you see how that is a strong defensive position. But an Athenian leader named Themistocles said, We need a wooden wall in the sea. It means ships. This message from Delphi means we need to build ships. The trireme ship that we have innovated and made better than anyone else's trireme ship, we can get silver from the Laurian mines and pay for it. And it was certain disaster if we don't do this. And that Salamis is the perfect geographical place because it is also a choke point. And if we can get our ships there, we will be able to take advantage of the Persians. Now, the Athenians had a difficult choice, but they accepted Themistocles. They went with his plan. They started building these ships. They paid for them with the silver, and they evacuated the citizens of Athens in advance, knowing that big problems are coming. Persia is huge. So the city is being evacuated, but not in panic. It was a strategy. But before we just sit and wait at Athens, the Greeks decided they need to go north to a geographic choke point, Thermopylae, the hot gates. It's a narrow pass that is the only way through. Persia has to come through this area. All the Greeks knew about it, especially the Spartans. The Spartans head north with orders from the Council of Elders. They need to go and defend the Greek land to keep the Persians from invading the Spartan land. Now, really, that should mean this area of Corinth, the Isthmus, because that is the real choke point that would prevent Persia from entering the Peloponnese of Greece. But Spartans, led by Leonidas, have taken orders, and 300 of them are going to go north all the way to Thermopylae. 300 of them, plus their support, other non-Spartans, will join the allies of Greece, the Thebans, and many of the allies that are aware of the advantage they could take at Thermopylae to stop the Persian advantage. Now, this is an exciting time because I've taught this lesson over 100 times, but this recording is the first time since I actually visited on site at Thermopylae. Here's some footage that you can see how it's not flat, not even close, and it really hugs the water. And it's changed over 2,500 years. There's rivers and streams that are flowing down out of the mountain, so there's a lot of silting. What is silt? Silting, the soil is being washed down from the mountains, so it's filling in and flattening this whole area. But this old map, gives us a better idea of how close to the water the Persians would have to hug and why this is a perfect choke point to defend. Because here, Leonidas will lead this coalition with his 300 rugged, tough Spartiates, the devoted Spartans, plus these other Thespians, Thebians, Greek allies, and they would defend this spot. There's a lot of detail, a lot more to this story because it goes on for days. The Persian infantry keeps attacking. They cannot break the Greek phalanx. The Greek phalanx, with their overlapping shields, tough bronze shields, and the Spartans, well-trained men. The Greek phalanx is a better engineered defensive formation. Their spears are longer, their shields are heavier. And in this tight space, the Persian, is it 1 million people, hundreds of thousands of troops? It doesn't matter because they're choked to this narrow spot. As the Persians try to retreat their position so that they can use their archers, they have so many arrows that will blot out the sun. Famously, the Spartan Dionysius says, "That's great, then we will fight in the shade." Spartans are good at laconic, short sayings. And they were the ones that said, "Molon labe," come and get them. When the Persians demand, "You lay down your weapons." And it was Leonidas who said, "Come and get them." Here's a picture of me and the statue right here in the parking lot where this might have happened when the Spartans show their toughness with their one-line clips. So it shows you the Spartan toughness and reminds us that Spartans are mascots for so many high schools and colleges around the country. But this battle is in a stalemate, with this narrow mountain path being protected by the toughness of the Greeks. The Persians needed a break, a lucky break or a fortunate. And if you remember back from lesson 32, you know, the Battle of Marathon lesson was quite deep and extensive. So don't miss out on that for a deeper understanding of everything going on before these years. The Persians like to make deals with people, and they made a deal with a shepherd named Ephialtes. Ephialtes, whose name has come to mean nightmare, because he made a deal with the Persians to help show them this mountain pass. You can get around this choke point, and you could flank behind where the Greeks were fighting. And when the Persians took advantage of this, paid off Ephialtes, and started to make their formations on the other side, it was known to the Greeks that they were being surrounded. They were probably ready for it. Everyone knew that this mountain pass existed. They were prepared, and maybe that's why the Spartans were the tip of the spear. They knew the Spartans would take one for the team. You know, back at Delphi, another prophecy that was delivered to the Spartans exactly, that a Spartan king would have to die in order to save Greece. And if Leonidas knew that going into this, he knew he was going to die, and so did the 300 Spartans. Why are they still there? As they took one for the team and held back the Persian advances, it shows you that they were willing to sacrifice, follow orders. It would help Sparta, but it would help everyone. It gave a delay so that all the other troops could retreat, could get back into a different position. Greeks do not win this battle. Thermopylae is a loss because the Persians will wipe out. Here on this hill, when I climbed this hill and could look around where we would have been surrounded if this was me and the Spartans, this was the hill, the last stand of the Spartans, as the formations built on both sides. They surrounded them. They just, a shower of arrows just pummeled whoever was left on this hill. The Spartans were killed off completely. Leonidas was killed. They were wiped out. But this delay is just thought to be almost like a victory. It helped the Greeks so much. And ultimately, it does help the Spartans. The orders were there from the Council of Elders, and they were followed. There was courage, bravery, and as we move on to the next stage, we'll wonder, can you lose the battle but win the war? The Spartan epitaph for this scene of the 300 who gave their lives go. Tell the Spartans that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. That they followed orders, they were courageous. And students, this is an epic lesson for students that haven't considered what obedience would be like. You know, when our troops serve in the military, ready to give their lives for their country. This is an ancient illustration of that. And do you know of the mascots? The high schools, check out these high school mascots that have a Spartan and a Trojan. And if you don't recall the fate of the Trojans, you need to take lesson 25 for your classical understanding of the Trojans. But I'll just tell you, I'd rather pick Spartans to be a mascot. You can lose a battle and win the war. And the Greeks still have that wooden wall. Let's get back to the wooden wall and find out what is the Greek response so that you could lose this one battle at Thermopylae, but still win the war. So Athens gets destroyed. The Persians are delayed, but by the time they get to Athens, they burn the Parthenon. That was the temple to Athena. They destroy Athens. Well, it was already evacuated. And Themistocles led the building of these ships, which could be a wall of wood. And Salamis, check out the map of Salamis. We just got done talking about the choke point, the geographic advantage that the Greeks had there. Salamis is going to do the same thing again. In the water, the Persians have the huge advantage again. The huge amount of troops, they actually camp out to the north for a time, supplies is before they start to move closer to Plataea with a new encampment there, but they've got all these ships and they're just going to wipe out and control the seas. They expect that the Athenian fleet would come to Corinth in the wide open waters and they could be completely destroyed. But Athens is too smart. Themistocles is too smart. The Persians trusted that they could outnumber again the Greeks, but Themistocles knew fighting in open water would be foolish. That just gives Persia their advantage. So he argued with the other Greek leaders that we need to attack in the narrow straits of Salamis. There was one Greek leader, Eurybiades, who raised his staff to strike Themistocles to stop him from talking because he wanted to actually sail off. They have their ships. We could go sail to Italy and start a colony. There actually was a moment where they could evacuate and this story would end. Themistocles answers, "Strike me, but hear me." His argument is intense, but he insists we've got to lure the Persians in. So he sent a slave, his slave Sisinus, to go to Xerxes, pretend like he's defecting. Oh, I don't like Themistocles anymore. I want to join the Persian team. Hey, the Persians have been doing this all the time. They're always bribing people like Ephialtes and other. So, okay, then just give us some secret clues and all this. And he just added confusion to Xerxes, and that helped lead the Persian fleet into this narrow, straight choke point where they lose all their advantage of size. This naval battle is starting at night, and there's chaos and confusion as dawn breaks. The weather actually gets worse. The morning wind starts tipping over the taller Persian ships, making them harder to control. Athenians have these triremes, which are so superior, and the crowded Persian vessels are starting to bump into and getting tangled with one another. The Greek triremes start just ramming in and smashing into the sides of these Persian fleet. They're starting to sink. The Persians are swimming for their lives. Queen Artemisia of Caria, K-A-R-I-A, was fighting on the Persian side, and she found herself getting pursued by an Athenian ship, and on accident, she rams into one of her own Persian vessels, and they think, oh, well, she's switching sides. There's just a lot of confusion going on. Aristides is leading a Greek force from an island where he's attacking and killing some Persian troops that were just waiting to wipe out any Greeks that are left swimming to shore, or maybe that had tried to flee and escape earlier. The Greeks have captured all of these islands where the Persians had tried to camp, and really just by the end of the day, the Persian fleet is shattered. Xerxes is now fearful that the Greeks are going to sail north, destroy his bridges at the Hellespont, and trap him. Like if this is a million, they're trapped in Greece. A real turn of events for the mighty Persian Empire. So Xerxes decides to pull back. He leaves his general, Mardonius, at this battlefield that's close to Plataea. So this map, like not far away from this naval battle, that's now a loss. Okay, the Greeks win the Battle of Salamis. The Persians have to flee. And what's left is a fighting force of Persians with no naval support, no supply lines. The Persians had built their entire strategy on numbers and intimidation, and now the fleet is gone. The Greeks have been building it on wisdom, geography, discipline, courage, a willingness to fight for their freedom, for their self-rule. The Persian foundation of I'm bigger than you, I'm the giant, and I should win. Are there any life lessons here for you? It's a classical journey into history, virtue, and wonder. And we are close to the final battle. And what is the trophy going to be? What do you win? What is the real meaning of all of this? And this is really one of my very favorite artifacts, trophies. It's not really a trophy. It's a monument. It's a statue. We've won Marathon. We've won at Salamis. Now here we are at Plataea. Mardonius has his troops. This is a region of Boeotia. Thebes is not far off here on the map. The Greeks have now gathered their largest hoplite army. We've got plenty of Spartans this time. That was the plan the whole time. Sparta only sent a small group to protect that narrow spot. Now it's time for Sparta and everyone else to show their toughness, their superiority, because the phalanx is superior. The Persian cavalry is powerful. They attacked. They even poisoned water close by in a spring and tried to cut the Greeks off from any good water source. Mardonius thinks for a moment that Sparta is in disarray. They're going to retreat with the different troops and the allies. You know, they're not controlled by one specific government the way Mardonius and the Persians are. So he orders troops forward, sending their lighter infantry and archers with their wickerwork shields and the arrows. They have a lot of arrows. They put them up against Sparta and those allies uphill. And for a time, Sparta endured a storm of arrows, waiting for some favorable signs and omens to shift over in their direction. But ultimately, Persia's wicker shields and light armor cannot withstand a heavy push of the hoplite phalanx. A hoplite, what is a hoplite? That is the Greek fighter with their shield, with their equipment. They are strong, and this is like 50 pounds of equipment. And when you're pushing it in this phalanx formation, what is this phalanx with the overlapping shields? It's a wall. It's intense. And it's what happened at Marathon to the Persians. And I don't know, I ask my kids, why didn't the Persians, they had over a decade to improve and to innovate against the Greeks. But ultimately, this wave of phalanx and the toughness of the Spartans will wipe out the Persians. It's really a rout. And one of the Spartans even struck Mardonius with a stone and killed him. With Mardonius, the Persian commander, dead, Persian morale collapsed. The battle was a rout. The Greeks stormed the Persian camp, which was barely even fortified, and the Persians were cut down, even as they tried to flee. Only a small part of that army escaped, using a different commander. And on that day, they won that battle, the land war, won by the Greeks, as it should have been because of the toughness. These invaders had been pushed out. They had engineering marvels and a lot of arrogance, saying, "Hey, Greeks, lay down your weapons." And the Greeks said, "Come and get them." Didn't work out very well for the Persians when they tried. But what trophy do you win? Well, let's rummage through the Persian camp. We've got the spoils of war. There's an enormous supply of gold and silver. There's cups. There's the rich textiles, the couches, luxurious food, But a Spartan leader, Pausanias, asked for Persian cooks to prepare a feast, just like they would for Mardonius. And next to it, he had a simple Spartan meal of the black broth. Have you seen this black broth before? It's kind of a toughness of Spartan training. It's made from pork blood, and it's, I guess, nutritious, protein, but not satisfying. And looking at those two different, the contrast of the spreads, he jokes about the absurdity of Persia. Absurdity of men who would enjoy such rich food, trying to rob the Spartans of their poverty. What was Sparta even fighting for? What is Sparta even going to win here? The Greeks are winning self-rule and freedom. Freedom from this Persian invasion. We're done. The Persians will be a threat, but they will not be a successful invading force into Europe, giving the Greeks a chance to flourish. And if we head back to Delphi to really understand what is the trophy, what is it that we're winning, some of the spoils of war are the bronze weapons the bronze weapons of the Persians. We're going to melt them down. We're going to put them into a mold, and we're going to make the trophy from the weapons of our enemies, from our opponents. It's a bronze serpent column. And I believe it's the ultimate mic drop moment. I ask kids in class, what else would be better than this? To take your opponent's, equipment. If you were in a football tournament, a football game, and you win, and the trophy will be your opponent's helmets. You bolt them all together in this big, how satisfying would that be? We're looking at the bronze serpent column. You're actually looking at the fake one that's placed in front of the temple to Apollo. Why is it the fake one? Because, 1,700 years ago when Constantine saw this thing. Are you impressed, by the way? Click the like button if you like melting your weapon, melting down your enemy's weapons. But Constantine liked it, and he took it from Delphi. He moved it to his new city of Constantinople, which we now call Istanbul. And here's a picture in 2015, some students in front of the actual bronze serpent column. They've got the replica at Delphi because it's just so important. And I love seeing it every single time in Delphi, even though it's a fake, and you can visit the real one in Istanbul. And on the side of the serpent column are the different names, the 31 Greek cities that fought together. So what do you win in this trophy? Greek identity, unity, camaraderie, teamwork, a shared understanding of what's important, what kind of wisdom really carries your society, your culture into the future. And is it better than Persia? Because you could have just joined the Persians with a lot less effort than this. They even bring some of the pieces of Xerxes' bridge cables and place them here at Delphi as more reminders and trophies, so that when you go to Delphi, you can understand what it's like to face a giant and to win. This is the classical pursuit of truth, just like the pursuit of those cables and the bronze weapons to put at Delphi to remind us how to understand, when you're facing the giant, that classical pursuit of truth and the good that happens when you win. You may lose a battle, but win the war, and the result is beautiful. In our case, the beauty of freedom, self-government. Greece had just invented democracy. All of the city-states have some type of self-rule, and they did not want the Persians to rule over them. What will you take forward from this lesson? Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your journey of classical truth, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.